welcome to the World of Wrestling podcast. I'm Slim, Carlton here again. Um, this is a long episode, so I'm just going to kick it straight off with SummerSlam, where if we recall, at the end of last week I did issue a challenge. I issued two challenges actually. The first challenge was pretty much to Watsy. It wasn't really issuing a challenge, it was more calling him out. And I called him out, and he decided to take place. Well, actually, he decided to take me up on it at SummerSlam. He didn't win. He was actually very, very bad. I've got the points here. I've got the points. Let's see, where did Watts come? He got one correct answer. Came second last to Josh, who got none because he didn't put his predictions in. Nothing I can do about that. So if you say that Josh didn't take part in it, so Watsy came last. So that's how shit he is. He's just proven it again. The 5-time champion is still as shit as ever. However, Whale Dong still has not answered my challenge. It's been a week. Obviously, we have Payback tomorrow. So I'm going to keep issuing this challenge every week. Whale Dong, calling you out. Join me and everyone else in the predictions. And I will beat you, obviously. But you can at least take part in the predictions. I know that you watch these podcast episodes at least. And you sometimes watch the predictions ones as well. So, calling you out. Do you want to join us to do a predictions contest? Hell, maybe you could join our predictions videos at whatever one you want. I don't care if it's AEW, NXT, NXT UK, Impact, New Japan, or WWE. Think that's all of them. Yeah, sounds like all of them. So now that I've finished calling out people, I am going to now start SummerSlam. So, we start with the pre-show, which is Apollo Crews defending the US Championship against MVP. Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley are banned from ringside. During Apollo's entrance, we get a promo from Crews saying that maybe MVP will see his... we'll see his boys' faces on one of the screens in the Thunderdome. MVP has new music, which is shit, because his old theme song was great. Lashley and Benjamin come out with him, but they go to the back. Good match. Crews wins by pinfall after hitting the toss powerbomb. Post-match, Lashley and Benjamin come down, and as Shelton tries to get Crews in the ring, Crews rolls out and manages to evade Lashley on the outside to escape. We then start the main show with Asuka versus Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Bayley is accompanied by Sasha Banks. During Asuka's entrance, we get a promo from Asuka who says she will win because nobody is ready for Asuka. That's also another thing. In most of these matches, there is a promo during the entrances. During the match, Sasha gets involved a few times. Good match. Bayley wins by pinfall with an inside cradle after Asuka hit the hip attack through the ropes on Sasha. Post-match, Sasha attacks Asuka, then Bayley joins in. Backstage, we see the Mysterio family and Dominic. Obviously, there's Dominic, there's Ray, and there is Dominic's mum and Ray's wife. Dominic asks his mum to get a second alone with Ray, and Dominic asks for Ray to not get involved in the match. Ray gives Dominic his word. Then we see what's happened over the weeks with Retribution. Then Kevin Owens comes out and points at the screens and says that it's all of my friends. Kevin Owens then joins commentary for the Raw Tag Team Championship match between the champions, the Street Profits, and the challengers, Andrade and Angel Garza, with Zelina Vega. Owens also says that the KO show will be on Raw, and his guest is Aleister Black. During the Profits' entrance, we see a promo, and they say that Vega can't deny the proof that she poisoned Ford. Then we go to during the match, and Vega gets up on the apron and gets knocked off. Andrade then checks on her, which means that Angel has nobody to tag. Good match. Profits win by pinfall after hitting the cash out and from the heavens on Garza. We then get a backstage interview with Sasha and Bayley, who say they will clean sweep Asuka tonight. Next is Mandy Rose vs Sonya Deville in a no DQ loser leaves WWE match. Good match. Mandy won by pinfall with a fourth running knee strike after hitting a double underhook face buster. Don't remember what she calls it. It's like the bed of roses or something. I don't remember what it is. Yeah, she doesn't hit it enough for me to remember. Post-match, Sonya has a little freak out and Otis comes down with the Money in the Bank to celebrate. Then we get the street fight between Rollins and Murphy. No, Rollins with Murphy versus Dominic with Ray. Really good match. Probably match of the night in my opinion. Rollins wins by pinfall after hitting a stomp. Too much happened to go through it, so just go and watch it. It was, possibly the match of the night. And it was a really, really good show. So, yeah. And next up is Sasha Banks with Bayley defending her Raw Women's Championship against Asuka. Pretty good match. Asuka won by submission with the Asuka Lock, which came after Sasha and Bayley tried the same trick they used to allow Bayley to retain, but it backfired because Bayley didn't take the hit. Then we have Drew McIntyre defending the WWE Championship against Randy Orton. During Orton's entrance, we get a promo from Heartbreak, who says he hopes Drew beats Orton. And since Orton punted him on Monday, he can't. By that, I guess he means can't beat Orton up. Pretty good match. Drew wins by pinfall with a backslide. Nobody hit their finishes. The Claymore kick was never hit. The RKO was never hit. The punt was never hit. So, yeah. It's then announced that Keith Lee will be on Raw tomorrow. And then it's time for the main event. And it's Braun Strowman versus The Fiend for the Universal Championship in a Falls Count Anywhere match. During the match, Braun gets a box cutter and cuts up the ring so he can expose the wood underneath the mat. Pretty good match. The Fiend wins by pinfall after hitting two back-to-back Sister Abigails on the exposed wood. Post-match, Roman Reigns returns and spears the Fiend and beats him up before turning his sights to Braun Strowman. Spears him too before grabbing a chair, attacking Braun with it. Roman then gets back in the ring, spears Fiend again, then grabs the Universal Championship and holds it high to close the show. So, who won the predictions? You might be wondering. Well, I'm just going to grab my belt that I don't have anymore. So just to give a quick update on that, in that I don't have the belt anymore. It was actually a four-way tie at the top between Lily, Fatboy, Kyle, and Zach. Okay, if you have watched the Payback predictions video, you know Zach. Lily's his sister. Yeah. So what happened was we then went to a tiebreaker, and Zach got eliminated from that tiebreaker, and then Lily outright won the second tiebreaker. So Lily's the champion. However, right, I know I lost my belt, and I know I said I wouldn't last week. I know. Trust me. You know what? I'm gonna tilt that down a little bit. Right? Trust me. I know. But there is a reason behind that, and I should have seen it coming. Um, so I mean, I should have on the podcast changed my predictions so that I have my belt back and then I make the predictions, because I didn't take the predictions that seriously since, I lost. I didn't have the belt. And then I made my predictions thinking, that should be about right. Like, whatever. And I mean, there was really only one match that screwed me, and that was Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. Randy should have won. Um, yeah, like, that was what happened. I got to that match, had Randy have won, I would have been at the top, and because I ended up on 5 points. Um, so that would have put me on 6. On 7 is the guys that won, so they got an extra point over me, and then they all picked the Fiend, and so did I, and so I would have tied with them on on 7. So that's how that would have worked. Actually, would I have? They would have been on 6 beforehand. So yeah, I would have tied them, which means I would have retained. Um, so yeah, the only other match that I got wrong was that the Profits won, which I should have probably said that they would have won, given that Ford was poisoned. So it was more the fact that I just didn't take it seriously. I just sort of went with what I wanted to happen rather than what I thought would happen, I guess. I didn't think about it that much. So I only lost because I didn't take it seriously. However, when I get my belt back tomorrow, obviously with Lily holding the belt, that means that it's Summer Struggle that took place yesterday. Well, last night even. I didn't have my belt to put, like, when I put the predictions in, I didn't have the belt. We didn't have the belt defended because Lily doesn't do New Japan predictions. She just does WWE, so I have to wait till tomorrow. So there's a reason why things throughout the week happened. When I win my belt back tomorrow, I'm not letting it go. So, yeah, it's not exactly my fault that I lost the belt after saying I wasn't going to. It was more just the fact that had I have had the belt before I made my predictions, I would have taken it more seriously. Because obviously, when you're the champion, you've got to stay champion, which is something that a lot of people can't seem to do. And yeah, me winning the belt back at Takeover, as much as I expected it, it wasn't something that I'd oops, forgot to turn my mouse off. Wasn't something that I took into account, me taking the belt back before putting my SummerSlam predictions in. So it's just, yeah, it was just the fact that I didn't take it seriously. It's not my fault, as Snitsky would say. So let's just move on from that to Raw. And we'll get to Summer Struggle at the end of the video. So let's move on to Raw. And the show starts with the stupid shitty match that cost me my belt. Drew McIntyre, he come out and said that he beat Orton at SummerSlam because he's hungrier than Randy. Drew then says that as good as Orton is, Drew is better. Drew then says that at Backlash, Orton won the greatest wrestling match ever. then gloated about it. So what does that make Drew? Drew ends by telling Orton that if he wants to step up again, he will send him to Claymore Country. Orton then attacks Drew when he gets to the top of the stage. The two then brawl to gorilla position, and Orton punts Drew twice. Backstage after the break, we see Orton being helped. No, we see Drew being helped to his feet. Don't know why I said Orton. We then get a video package for Keith Lee, who will debut later in the show. We then see Nia walking backstage, and she is asked what she's doing here, and Nia says she apologised to Pat Buck. Baszler then walks up and says that everyone is waiting for Nia to do or say something and get kicked out again. Nia asks if Baszler has a match with Bayley, and she says yes. Nia then says that if Baszler needs some help, then to give Nia a call, and Baszler says yeah, sure, before leaving. We then get Bayley and Sasha Banks versus Shayna Baszler. Nia comes out and stands at the top of the ramp before the match starts. Good match. Baszler wins by DQ after Nia grabs Baylor's foot. The two then brawl, and Bayley and Sasha try to keep them fighting, and they stop fighting and look like they might team up to take on Bayley and Sasha. Backstage, we see Owens, and he asks someone if they know where Aleister Black's locker room is, and they tell him where it is. Owens then knocks on Black's door and asks if he'll be joining him for the KO show. We then get the KO show with his guest Aleister Black. Black gets introduced, comes out with a bandage over his head. Everybody says he looks like a friggin' pirate, but he's not. He's clearly a bandage over his head, not an eye patch. It pisses me off, right? As you can tell in the Payback video, because Seth brought it up, and yeah, friggin' idiots. Owens asks how Black is going, and Black says, let's just show what Murphy did to him. Owens then says that Rollins does things to get under people's skin, and it's happening to Owens too. Black then makes it seem like he's in pain, but then he attacks and hits Black Bass on Kevin Owens. Backstage interview with Bayley and Sasha, and they say they didn't avoid Baszler, they avoided her beef with Nia. They also say that later Sasha will win back the Raw Women's title, and then they'll deal with both Nia and Baszler. Then we have a fatal four-way match for the 24/7 Championship between Shelton Benjamin, Akira Tozawa with his ninjas, Cedric Alexander, and R-Truth. Okay match, Tozawa won with a sunset pin on Truth. Backstage interview with Orton, and he says that he will comment on what Drew said about him, whatever, before continuing to walk off. We then see what happened at the start of the show with Orton attacking McIntyre, and Orton's back out to talk about what Drew said about him at the start of the show. Orton says that he said he would take... Oh, hang on. Orton says that he said he would take out Edge, Christian, Big Show, and whoever else. And he did it. And then he did what he did earlier, because Orton offered another challenge. Hang on. Because Drew offered another challenge to Orton out of pity, and then Orton's interrupted by Keith Lee. Lee then introduces himself to Orton and says that he is here to offer him this privilege, and that privilege is to bask in his glory. Lee then challenges Orton to a match right here, right now. Orton says, maybe later. And Keith Lee, I know that everybody's already talked about this, but it does look like he's wearing a skirt. I don't mind the vest, right? I couldn't care less about the vest. His new music is shit, though. I have heard that it's got something to do with the producer or something not wanting him to use it on Raw. So I'm not sure there exactly what the go is, but that's what I've heard. Backstage interview with Garza and Vega. Vega still denies poisoning Ford, and Garza says that, so what, Vega has been caught. Garza then asks that girl what she is doing later, and she says that she's been talking to Ivar, and Garza says that his match is next, so she's welcome to come out. He then turns to Charlie and says that she's also welcome to come down for his match. We then have Angel Garza with Andrade, and Demi is apparently what her name is, versus Montez Ford with Angelo Dawkins. During Profit's entrance, we get a promo from them where they say that Ford will beat Garza. During the match, Ivar comes out and gives Demi a turkey leg and leaves with her. Ford wins by pinfall with From the Heavens. Backstage, Nia says to Baszler that she isn't thrilled that they're teaming together, but they have a good chance at winning the tag titles at Payback, and she really wants the tag titles. Baszler says that she will help her with that if that means that Nia will leave her alone. Nia says only if Baszler follows her lead. Baszler then slaps Nia before leaving. We also see the Riot Squad and Belair joins them, and they say that they're going to whoop the Iconics and Zelina Vega's ass. We then get Zelina Vega and the Iconics versus the Riot Squad and Bianca Belair. Decent match, very short. Belair and the Riot Squad win by pinfall after Belair hit the KOD on Vega. We then have Mark Henry walking up to Cedric and Ricochet, who were using the arm wrestling thing, because it's an arm wrestling contest. Cedric beat Ricochet. Henry says that they need to take it unless they want to go, which they don't, because why would you want to arm wrestle the world's strongest man? After Henry leaves, MVP walks up and has got Cedric for not going after the 24/7 champion Akira Tozawa, and instead playing games with a Ricochet who abandoned him last week. MVP leaves when he says that the Hurt Business has US title business to deal with. We then see what happened at SummerSlam between Apollo and the Hurt Business. We then have an arm wrestling contest between Apollo and Lashley with Henry as the moderator. Henry says that he told both the Hurt Business and Ali, Cedric and Ricochet not to come out here. Lashley then says that he will beat Apollo in arm wrestling, then beat him up again at Payback. Apollo then beats Lashley in arm wrestling after he stomps on Lashley's foot. Cruz then takes out the entire Hurt Business. Then we see what happened at SummerSlam between Dominic, Ray, Rollins and Murphy before getting a backstage interview with the Mysterio family. Ray says that he's proud of his son. Dominic says that he was terrified, but he knew he had his family in his corner, and that's what allowed him to take it to Rollins. Ray says that soon Rollins will have a family of his own, and he will realise what he has put Ray through. Next up is Natalya and Lana, who are in the ring, and Lana says that they are inducting someone into the Hall of Fame. And Lana starts talking about how great Natalya is, and Natalya says that they're actually inducting Mickie James. Natalya then rolls a clip that shows Mickey's career, but nothing plays. Mickie comes down, takes out both Lana and Natalya. We then see Lashley and the Hurt Business showing up to Raw Underground, and Lashley tells Shane he's looking for a fight. We then see Lashley choking someone out, then Ziggler fights Lashley. Lashley takes out Ziggler, then beats up someone else. We then get Randy Orton vs Keith Lee. During Orton's entrance, we see what Orton did to McIntyre at the start of the show. Good match. Orton wins by DQ after McIntyre attacked Orton when he was setting up for an RKO. The two then brawled until Orton got away. We then look at what happened at SummerSlam between The Fiend, Strowman and Roman, including the match between The Fiend and Strowman. Backstage interview with Drew, who says that he doesn't feel good, and as he went to talk directly to Orton through the camera, Orton attacked and hit another punt. We then see what just happened with Orton and Drew. Charlie then says that Drew is in the trainer's room and says that they are very fearful for Drew's health. We then have Sasha Banks with Bayley vs. Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship in a lumberjack match. During the match, Asuka goes after Bayley, and Bayley throws Natalya, Lana, and the Iconics to Asuka, and she beats them up. Good match. Asuka wins by submission with the Asuka lock. She locked it in after Bayley went to introduce the chair into the match, but Baszler stopped her, and that distracted Sasha. We then get told that Drew has been loaded into an ambulance to be taken to a local medical facility to undergo more tests. Then Keith Lee shows up and says that Drew is tough and he'll be fine, but he can't say the same for Orton. We then go back to Raw Underground, where Lashley is against Cedric. Lashley wins with an armbar. Then the Viking Raiders attack the Hurt Business. Lashley submits Ivar with a... hang on. I don't know what that says. Why does it say with the limits? Oh no, he submits Ivar while Eric gets beaten down by MVP and Shelton Benjamin. Then we are told that at Payback we'll get Keith Lee versus Randy Orton. Main event time, and it's Rey and Dominic Mysterio versus Seth Rollins and Murphy. Rollins and Murphy attack Rey and Dominic before the bell. Weird camera angles and cuts during this match. Good match. Rey and Dominic won by DQ after Retribution shows up and attacks them. Retribution stand on the ring apron to close the show, while Rollins and Murphy are on the top of the stage. Moving on to AEW Dark, and the show runs as long as Dynamite, which is stupid. They don't need it to run as long as it is. They could have made 4 good length episodes. Like, they're only meant to be 3 or 4 matches long. Like, half an hour, tops. 3 or 4 matches, that was it. They could have made 4 decent length shows. Like, yeah, there was 13 matches, I'm pretty sure. 13. Like, you know, if you divide it, right, so it'd be like 4, 8, 12. Okay, so then there's just 1. Right, so then you go 3, 6, 10, 13. Or 3, 6, 9, 13. Like, they could have made 4 episodes out of this 1 episode. But anyway, we'll start it off with the first match of the night, which is Storm Thomas and Dimitri Jackson versus the Best Friends with Orange Cassidy. Good match. Best Friends won by pinfall after Chuck hit a pile driver on Jackson. Then we get Jesse Sorensen versus Sean Spears with Tully Blanchard. Good match. Spears wins by pinfall after hitting the C4. Post-match, Spears loads up the glove and hits Sorensen. After that, it's Red Velvet versus Mel. Decent match. Mel won by pinfall after hitting a choke slam that ended with Mel down to a knee. Next up is D3 versus Lance Archer with Jake the Snake Roberts. Archer beat up a big fat dude during his entrance. Pretty much a squash match. Archer wins by pinfall after the blackout and the EBD claw. We then have Luther and Serpentico versus the Initiative with Leva Bates. The match starts when Luther and Serpentico attack the Initiative. Really good match. Luther and Serpentico win by pinfall after Avalon hit Cutler in the head with a book, and Luther and Serpentico hit a spinebuster Meteora combo on Cutler. After that, we get Kylan King versus Nyla Rose with Vicky Guerrero. Decent match. Rose won by pinfall after Vicky pushed King off the top rope, allowing Rose to hit the Beast Bomb. Post-match, Nyla throws King out of the ring, and Vicky gets on the mic to say that their alliance name is the Vicious Vixens. We then get Frank Stone and Baron Black versus the Gun Club. Pretty good match. The Gun Club wins by pinfall after Austin hits the quick draw on Black. Then we have Heather Monroe versus Penelope Ford with Kip Sabian. During the match, Kip gets 2 leaf blowers out, turns them on to successfully distract Monroe. Pretty good match. Ford wins by pinfall after she hit the Fisherman suplex with a bridge. Next is Santana and Ortiz versus the Metro Brothers. Good match. Santana and Ortiz win by pinfall after Ortiz hit a powerbomb into a massive kick by Santana. Post-match, Best Friends attack Santana and Ortiz. Then it's Ricky Starks versus Sean Dean. Good match. Starks win by pinfall after hitting the Rochambeau. Next on the card is Jake Hager versus Marco Stunt. Good match, sort of a squash match. Hager wins by submission with the Kataguntami. Post-match, Hager attacks Marco and escapes before the rest of the Jurassic Express can get to him. It's then Frankie Kazarian versus Kip Sabian with Penelope Ford. Really good match. Kaz won by pinfall after hitting a reverse DDT. Main event time, and it's TH2 versus Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss. Pretty good match. TH2 win by pinfall after Evans backslides Kiss, then does a spider bridge to ensure the 3. That was AEW Dark. 13 matches. Why is it that long? I don't know. AEW needs to make them not that long. Moving on to AEW Dynamite. And there's a live audience in the crowd again for this episode. I guess it'll be from this episode onward. Unless something changes, I guess. The show starts with Chris Jericho joining commentary, and the crowd was singing the song, and it was awesome. I mean, I sing it every time it comes on, because it's a great song. And I'm just at home. We then get the start of the number one contenders gauntlet match for the tag team championships, which is between the Young Bucks and the Natural Nightmares with Ali. Good match. Young Bucks win by pinfall after hitting the BTE trigger on QT. Bucks must now face the Best Friends. Good match. Best Friends win after Hangman holds Nick's foot, so the Bucks couldn't hit the Meltzer driver, which also allows Trent to reverse the tombstone that Matt had him in into a pin, and since Hangman had Nick's foot, he couldn't break up the pin either. Best Friends now need to face FTR with Tully Blanchard in the final part of the gauntlet. Good match, really good match overall. FTR win by submission after locking Chuck in an Indian Deathlock. FTR will now face Hangman and Omega at All Out for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. We then get a promo package with Darby Allin, who says he isn't afraid of Ricky Starks before jumping off a bridge. Then we get Lance Archer with Jake Snake Roberts versus Sean Maluta. Archer decks someone before the match. Squash match, Archer wins by pinfall after hitting the Blackout and the EBD Claw. Post-match, Jake Roberts says that Archer had also better win the Casino Battle Royal. Archer says he will win. Jake gets cut off by Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, and Taz. Taz says that either Starks or Cage will win the Battle Royal. Darby Allin then comes out and attacks Starks, and they fight to the back. In the ring, Archer and Cage try to go at it, but Taz and Jake Roberts hold both men back. We then see MJF, and he says he thought he saw Lee Johnson laughing at him, which was quite funny because Lee Johnson was probably laughing at him. I wasn't exactly paying attention to Lee Johnson. Then we get a video package for Hikaru Shida vs Thunder Rosa, including a contract signing between the two. Then we have the contract signing between Jon Moxley and MJF. MJF says that this contract signing won't end in violence. He then calls Moxley an animal. MJF also says that at All Out he will win the AEW World Championship. MJF says that if Moxley isn't man enough to fight MJF without the paradigm shift, then he should tell his wife that MJF is single. Mox then says that MJF is taking away the paradigm shift, but that is making him more dangerous because he's got to get creative. Mox then signs the contract and says that nothing MJF says matters, and nothing Mox signs matters either, because MJF will be a dead man at All Out, and Mox signs. Mox then says he added something on page 17, and it says that next week Mox gets to face MJF's lawyer, with the paradigm shift still being legal, and if the lawyer doesn't show up, then MJF doesn't get his title match. MJF already signed it before Mox did, so that's happening. Mox also says, when he says about page 17, both MJF and the lawyer both sit there and go, but there was only 16 pages. So that was quite funny. And Mox also says, don't sign something before you read it. Santana and Ortiz then say that they are sorry that Trent's mum wasn't in the car before they wrecked it. We then have Lucha Brothers and the Butcher and the Blade with Eddie Kingston versus Griff Garrison, Joe Janela, Sonny Kiss, and Brian Pillman Jr. During Lucha Bros and the Butcher and the Blade's entrance, Eddie Kingston says that he will lead everyone to championships. Pretty good match. Lucha Bros and the Butcher and the Blade win by pinfall after Lucha Bros hit a sort of elevated pile driver with Phoenix drop kicking Pillman. Post-match, Eddie Kingston says that all 5 of them will be in the Casino Battle Royal and one of them will win. We then take a look at what happened between Brody Lee and the Dark Order and the Nightmare Family. Next, the Dark Order comes out and they are carrying a coffin. Evil Uno says that the Dark Order have been on Cloud 9 since last week's episode of Dynamite. Uno also says that the coffin represents Cody, and when they open it, 10 is in the coffin. Uno then says that the coffin is now closed on the Nightmare Family. Anna Jay then comes out with Brody Lee, and we have an in-ring interview with Mr. Brody Lee. Brody says the Open Challenge is over and Cody will never get his title back. Brody Lee then introduces Anna Jay as the newest member and the Queen Slayer. Brody then knocks out 4, which is John Silver, who had interrupted the interview, and as Brody is saying no one can touch him, Dustin comes out and attacks them. He's joined by QT Marshall. Both of them get taken out. Then Scorpio Sky comes out, clears out most of the members of the Dark Order, but gets taken out by Brody after Anna Jay slaps him, and the rest of the Dark Order swarm the Natural Nightmares and Scorpio Sky. At that point, Brody Lee, Colt Cabana, and Anna Jay leave. While Brody is leaving, he throws Uno towards the face entrance tunnel. And that's where he is hit with Radio Silence by Matt Cardona. And he helps the Natural Nightmares and Scorpio Sky take out the Dark Order. Backstage interview with Hangman Adam Page, and they are interrupted by the Young Bucks, who say that Hangman is a drunk, and they kick him out of the Elite. Then we get Big Swole versus Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, Reba, and Penelope Ford with Kip Sabian. Before the match, Britt says that if Swole wins this match, she can have Britt one-on-one in any match. Ford and Reba then attack Swole before the bell. During the match, Kip Sabian gets involved and then gets hit with Dirty Dancing by Swole. Okay match, Swole won by pinfall after the ref was distracted by getting rid of one of Britt's crutches. Reba failed to hit Swole and hit Penelope Ford with the other crutch, allowing Big Swole to pick up the pin. Dark Order then come back and give Tay Conti a contract sort of thing to join the Dark Order, I guess. I guess that would be the only reason why they'd come back out and hand her some sort of paper. It was in a folder. Don't know what it was, but I'm guessing it's a contract to join the Dark Order. Then we see what happened to Orange Cassidy last week. Main event time, and it's Sammy Guevara versus Matt Hardy in a tables match. Good match, very short. Sammy wins after he suplexed Matt through a table that was positioned over a steel chair. Post-match, Orange Cassidy attacks Jericho in commentary. The two brawl. Sammy tries to help, but gets held back by referees. Moving on to NXT. And Wade Barrett's on this week's NXT. He's also on next week's NXT. He's doing commentary. NXT this week starts with a recap of what happened at TakeOver. To kick the show off, we have Scarlett and the new NXT champion Karrion Kross. who has his arm in a sling because he separated it during the match against Keith Lee. Cross is handed the mic from Scarlett and he says, "I told you so." Cross says he has a separated shoulder and he knows that they won't let him defend the title in his condition, so he leaves the title in the ring and Scarlett leaves an hourglass. Cross finishes by saying, "God help those who are in his way when he comes back." Then we get Breezango vs Imperium, that being Fabian Eichner and Marcel Bartel, for the NXT Tag Team Championships. During Imperium's entrance, they're attacked by Breezango. Pretty good match. Breezango won by pinfall after Breeze hit both Eichner and Bartel with supermodel kicks, and Fandango hits a double top rope leg drop on both of them too. Backstage, we see Damian Priest, and he says that the party, or the after party, is still going when he is interrupted by Timothy Thatcher, who says he should have the first shot at the North American Championship. And if Priest gets in the ring with him, he'll prove how unequipped Priest's wrestling is. Priest says it looks like he's very well equipped before leaving. We then see that William Regal, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Albert are having a meeting. We don't know what about exactly, but you'd have to think it would be about Cross relinquishing the NXT title. Then we have a returning Tommaso Ciampa versus Jake Atlas. Squash match for Ciampa, who wins by pinfall after hitting Willow's bell. Post-match, Ciampa attacks Atlas again and even catapults Atlas after placing him under the ring. Then hits another Willow's bell from the stretcher that Atlas was on before leaving. Then we hear what Candice LeRae has to say about Tegan Nox. Backstage interview with Bronson Reed, who says that he has beaten Priest, so he should have the first opportunity at the North American title, not Timothy Thatcher. He is then interrupted by Austin Theory, who says that if Reed keeps doing what he's doing, maybe he'll become a champion at the age of 55. Reed then slaps Theory, which I guess means Theory's back on NXT, no longer a part of Seth Rollins' cult. We then have Mia Yim versus, well, it's meant to be Mercedes Martinez, but Robert Stone comes out. He says that what happened with Rhea, after what happened with Rhea, he isn't going to let Mercedes fight her. Stone is then run over by Shotzi and her tank, and she then gets in the ring to face Yim. So we now have Mia Yim versus Shotzi Blackheart. Decent match. Shotzi wins by pinfall after hitting a top rope senton. Yeah. It was a match. With saying that, Mia Yim and Shotzi Blackheart aren't the best. So, my hopes on having a good match here was definitely not high, because they're both not that good. They're decent, but they're not good. Backstage interview with Regal, and he says he's heading to the ring to inform everyone about the decision that he, Albert, and DX made about the NXT title. During the interview with... hang on. I don't know where I got during from. Backstage interview with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. Kai says that at TakeOver, Rhea should have minded her own business, and tonight Kai will prove that she still deserves the NXT Women's Championship. Gonzalez says that Rhea messed up by getting in her face. Regal is out next, and he says that the new NXT champion will be decided in a fatal 4-way, 60-minute Iron Man match next week on NXT Super Tuesday between Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Finn Balor, and Adam Cole, baby. Wade Barrett announces that he will be coming back next week because he ain't missing that match. Hands up, I ain't missing that match either. Obviously, I've got to do it for this, but even if I wasn't, I would definitely tune in for that match. And we now know what, I guess, the last hour of next week's show will be. We then get Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Santos Escobar with the rest of Legado del Fantasma for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. Wilde and Mendoza go to the back before the match. During the match, Wilde and Mendoza come down and almost cost Swerve the match. Then Breezango come down and run Wilde and Mendoza to the back. Escobar wins by pinfall after he headbutts Swerve after putting a mask on with something where the forehead is. Backstage promo with Johnny Gargano, who says that he now has a golden ticket to fix NXT next week. Backstage promo with Finn Balor, who says next week he'll become NXT champion. Then we get Kyle O'Reilly with Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish versus Drake Maverick. Pretty good match. Core won by submission with a double heel hook. Post-match era attack Maverick. Fish goes to get a steel chair, and as they're about to continue the assault, Killian Dane comes down, runs Era off, then attacks Drake Maverick. We then look at what happened in the NXT Women's Championship match at TakeOver. Backstage interview with Rhea Ripley, and she says she wasn't there to save Io at TakeOver, but to say that Io was hers now, and if Raquel wants Ripley to get out of her face, then she should make her. Backstage promo with Adam Cole, who says next week the Mount Rushmore of NXT has a match to determine who will become the NXT champion. Cole also says that he'll win, and that is undisputed. Main event time, and it's Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley versus Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. During the match, Mercedes Martinez comes out and takes out Ripley. Pretty good match. Kai and Gonzalez win by pinfall after hitting the side powerbomb thing on Ripley. Gonzalez obviously did that because could you imagine Dakota Kai picking up Rhea Ripley? That's funny. Moving on to NXT UK, and this week's NXT UK, William Regal remembers British wrestling legend Mark Rollerball Rocco, aka Black Tiger. The superstars who choose their favourite matches this week are Regal, who chooses the only Black Tiger match that he had for WWE. Toni Storm, who chooses her Mae Young Classic Finals match against Io Shirai at Evolution. And the final match of the night is Sami Zayn versus Cesaro at NXT Arrival, chosen by Ilya Dragunov. I can't wait till NXT starts back up again. Hopefully it's the same sort of. It comes back on the same level as when it left, which it should. And also we're getting an NXT UK at the start of October, so like a takeover. So yeah. Moving on to SmackDown, and SmackDown starts with a recap of the Universal Championship match at SummerSlam and what happened after it. We then see Adam Pearce telling security to be on high alert and that Vince is in the building. We then go into Vince's locker room and he says that he needs Braun, Bray and Roman signatures tonight and tells Pearce to start with The Fiend. We then kick off properly with Jeff Hardy, and we see what happened last week between Styles and Jeff, including Jeff winning the Intercontinental title. Jeff says that he's lucky to be standing after what Styles did last week, and that he is ready to defend. At that point, Styles interrupts him. Styles says that Jeff whined so that he could get an illegal object, that being the knee brace, because he had a plan. Styles then says that he isn't cleared to compete tonight, and Jeff says that he was about to issue an open challenge to anyone in the back, except AJ. AJ then goes to attack Jeff, but is hit in the head instead. We then get Jeff Hardy defending the Intercontinental Championship against Shinsuke Nakamura. Styles is on commentary. During the match, we talk to Cesaro, who says that he left to go get some champagne, and when he came back, Nakamura was gone. So maybe he's a little bit more impulsive than Cesaro thought, but he wishes him good luck anyway. However, it did seem a little bit sarcastic. Good match. Jeff wins by pinfall after hitting the Swanton Bomb. Post-match, Jeff tells Styles that he'll fight him whenever. Styles then gets in the ring and says that he'll take the title from Jeff. Sami Zayn returns with his Intercontinental title. Sami says there's only one IC champ and Jeff is a fraud. And then he kicked Jeff in the face. Backstage interview with Sami Zayn, and he says that Jeff is pretending to be the Intercontinental champ. Sami then talks French before leaving. We then get a new Firefly Funhouse episode where Bray says that the Universal title is back, and it's good to see Roman again. Bray then gets a ring at the door, and it's Postman Pearce who's trying to get Bray to sign the contract. And Bray asks, why the hell would he sign it? The match isn't Bray Wyatt, it's The Fiend. Pearce says that it seems like Bray and The Fiend, have a connection. And Bray says, okay, and signs it before saying that he just signed a couple of death warrants. We then have Matt Riddle vs Shorty G. Before the match, Riddle gets on the mic and says that Corbin is scared to fight Riddle. Corbin comes out and Riddle gets attacked from behind by Shorty G, which they've been sort of changing whether Shorty G is a heel or not over the past couple of weeks. Like, he turned heel, then he was still a heel, but he lost. And then he sort of tried to turn face by apologising, but Corbin just took it like, he's apologising, so he's distracted Riddle and whatever. So it seemed like it was going to be like a Shorty G's turn face again. However, now he's just attacking Riddle from behind, so he's back to being a heel. Corbin then accepts the match on behalf of Shorty G. Decent match, very short. Riddle won by pinfall with the Bro Derek. Post-match, Corbin tries to attack Riddle from behind, but Riddle saw it coming. Then we see what happened on Talking Smack with Big E and The Miz. Then we see that earlier Big E was saying that he didn't want to do Miz TV. Miz and Morrison show up and they have a go at Big E for saying that. When Sheamus walks up, then Heavy Machinery walk up to even the odds. Then we see Big E and Heavy Machinery backstage. Bayley and Sasha show up and they say that some people can only handle tag team championships. Big E points out that that would also include Sasha. And Sasha's sort of upset. Backstage, we then see Adam Pearce at Reigns' locker room. He doesn't answer though. Then we get a backstage interview with Corbin, who says that at Payback, he will prove that Riddle doesn't belong here. Bayley and Sasha are out next, and while they're getting in the ring, we see what happened in both the Raw and SmackDown Women's title matches at SummerSlam. Sasha and Bayley then say that they're in the middle of their hardest week ever. Bayley then says that it's her fault that Sasha lost the Raw Women's title because she shouldn't have let her challenge Asuka in the first place because she knew that Sasha can't defend a Raw title. Bayley and Sasha say that they will retain the titles, and Sasha says she'll do anything to keep the belts. They're then interrupted by Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, who say they don't like each other, but they're going to take the belts anyway. Backstage, Pearce asks Gulak if he's seen Roman. Gulak asks if Pearce has seen Braun. Gulak then spots Braun and hits him in the back with a chair, then chucks the chair to Pearce. Pearce then says that Gulak hit him with the chair and asks Braun if he'll sign the contract. Braun says only if Pearce can get Gulak to have a match with him. Pearce says, okay. Cesaro says that he supports the fact that Nakamura went after the Intercontinental title, but he needs to tell Cesaro since they're a team. Sami then comes in and they have a go at him for leaving for 4 months without contacting them, and they eventually kick Sami out of their locker room. Next up is Drew Gulak vs Braun Strowman. During Braun's entrance, we see what happened at the end of SummerSlam between Braun and The Fiend. Squash match, Braun wins by pinfall after hitting the running power slam. Post-match, at the top of the stage, Adam Pearce is waiting for Braun, who signs the contract. We then see Lucha House Party, and Kalisto says that he learned from Lindsay's mistakes last week, and he's going to show him how it's done. After Kalisto leaves to come out for his match, Cesaro and Nakamura attack Lindsay and Grand Metalik. After that, we get Cesaro with Nakamura versus Kalisto. During Kalisto's entrance, we see what happened between the members of Lucha House Party last week. Good match. Kalisto was actually very good. Cesaro wins by pinfall after Nakamura distracted Kalisto, which prompted the rest of Lucha House Party to come out, which kept Kalisto distracted, and Cesaro rolled up Kalisto. I should also mention, which I didn't, Kalisto did tell Lucha House Party to stay in the back for this match, so that's why he was even more distracted when they come down. Post-match, Lucha House Party argue again. Adam Pearce then comes back to Vince's locker room and says that he's managed to get Braun and Bray's signatures, but not Roman's because he won't open his locker room door. Then we get possibly the greatest moment on this week's episode of SmackDown. Vince says that he would knock Roman's locker room door down. And he says that the way he would do that is by getting a couple of men on either side of Adam Pearce, and they would pick Pearce up and use him as a battering ram, and he bets that the door would come down, which is just awesome. Imagine 4 people, right? One person has one arm, another person has the other, and then they've both got Adam Pearce's legs, like another 2 people, and they just swing him back, head first, straight to the locker room door, knocks them open. That would just be funny. Like I said, possibly the greatest part of the show. Vince still has it. Whether that's in short bursts, but he's proven he's still got it, because that was awesome. Yeah. Backstage, we see Nikki Cross and Tamina. Oh no, we see Nikki Cross, and Tamina comes up to her and asks how Bliss is. Bliss then walks up, says she's great, never been better. Nikki says that Bliss hasn't... Hang on. Nikki says that Bliss hasn't done her hair the way she has tonight in a long time. Cross notices that Bliss has a dreadlock, and when Cross says she doesn't really like it, Bliss gets angry, smashes a mug that Cross was holding, which was her first present to Cross. Cross also said, when she said that she didn't really like it, she also said that it reminded her of Bray. And so, yeah. Bliss got angry, smashed a mug, and walked off. Backstage, we then see Miz and Morrison, who are talking. Sheamus walks up and asks what they're talking about, and they lie and say the match. Sheamus asks what they've come up with so far. Morrison says, we need to keep Big E out of the match, because he's a powerhouse. So, keeping him out of the match just makes sense. Then he says, we need to keep Tucker out of the match, because he's also a powerhouse, so that just makes sense. Then we need to keep Otis out of the match, because he's crazy and a powerhouse, so it just makes sense. And at that point, Sheamus goes, just follow my lead. And Miz sort of goes, like, what the hell? You always do that. And that was quite funny. It was probably the second best moment of the night. Main event time, and it's Sheamus, Miz and Morrison versus Big E and Heavy Machinery. Before Miz, Morrison and Sheamus come out, we see that Adam Pearce has finally been able to get a hold of Roman, who wants to read the contract first. During the match, Sheamus leaves after Miz and Morrison continue to not tag him in. Big E and Heavy Machinery win by pinfall after Big E hits the big ending on The Miz. We end the show with Roman not signing the contract, like I've got here, but actually telling them that he will be at Payback for the match if they make the changes that he wants made. Because he got Paul Heyman to look over the contract, and Paul Heyman seems to be managing Roman now, which was surprising, for sure. But that's how we ended SmackDown. Moving on to 205 Live, and we kicked 205 Live off this week with Tehuti Miles versus the Brian Kendrick. During Miles' entrance, we get a promo from Miles saying that he is Rookie of the Year and he hopes a veteran will be able to bring out the best in him. Good match. The Brian Kendrick wins by pinfall with an inside cradle. Post-match, Tehuti and Kendrick shake hands. Then it's Tony Nese versus Liam Gray. Squash match. Nese won by pinfall with the running Nese. Main event time, and it's the Brit and Brawlers versus Everrise. Good match. Brit and Brawlers won by submission after Birch locked in the crossface on Parker. Moving on to the final part of this episode, and it's New Japan's Summer Struggle. We start the show with Yoshinobu Kanemaru versus Master Wato with Hiroyoshi Tenzan. Good match. Kanemaru won by pinfall with a roll-up, which happened to be the only match I got right. Now, there is a funny part of this, right? That was the only match I got right. So next up is the King of Pro Wrestling Tournament Finals. It's also for the King of Pro Wrestling Championship. And it's between El Desperado, Toru Yano, Kazuchika Okada, and Sanada. Pretty good match. Toru Yano won by pinfall with the low blow and a roll-up on Okada. So at this point, after the two matches, I am in the lead on 1, everyone is on 0. We then get Shingo Takagi defending the Never Openweight Championship against Minoru Suzuki. Really good match. Super hard hitting. Suzuki won by pinfall after hitting a Gotch-style pile driver. Okay then, fine. I got that one wrong as well, obviously, because I only had 1 point. Okay. Well, now we're all tied on 1. Alright, whatever, that's fine. That is fine. After that, we have Taiji Ishimori challenging for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship against Hiromu Takahashi. Really good match. Ishimori won by submission with a Gargano escape. Now, everyone is still tied on 1. So, then we have Dangerous Tekkers, which is Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr., defending the IWGP Tag Team Championships against Golden Ace. I thought it was Golden Star Ace, just because they have a star in their name. But apparently it's just Golden Ace. That is Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi. Pretty good match. Dangerous Tekkers won by pinfall after they hit Zack Mephisto on Tanahashi. Now, that match had a very big impact on the predictions, because me and Kyle both had Tana and Ibushi, and Seth and Joe both had Dangerous Tekkers. So that means that they're on 2 and we're on 1. However, in the main event we all had the same, which was Evil, obviously. So they tied and won, which Seth seems to win at New Japan. I don't know why, but he does. But at least the belt wasn't on the line, so he didn't win the belt. That was great. Main event time, and it's Evil with Dick Togo defending the IWGP Heavyweight and IWGP Intercontinental Championships against Tetsuya Naito. Before the bell, Dick Togo gets taken out by Naito, then Evil smashes Naito in the face with the heavyweight title. During the match, Dick Togo gets involved multiple times, and when the ref gets taken out, Togo gets in the ring, beats up Naito, but is stopped when Bushi comes out. However, Gato comes down, and he comes down after to help Evil and Dick Togo, but Sanada comes down to even the odds, and eventually Sanada and Bushi take Dick Togo and Gato to the back. Really good match. Tetsuya Naito wins by pinfall with Destino. Post-match, Naito thanks everyone and asks that everyone bands together to get through the pandemic. Fireworks then go off at the end of Naito's speech. And by fireworks, I mean actual fireworks in the sky, because they were outside. So that is what happened on this week in the world of wrestling. Another thing I should also mention, Tetsuya Naito is now defending both titles separately, not together. Um, and yeah, so that was it. However, I'm going to say a couple of other things. I am going to win my belt back tomorrow. I'm never letting it go. Whale Dong still needs to answer his call out. After Payback, there is All Elite Wrestling's All Out, right? AEW All Out, which will also be covered in next week's podcast unless I can't get a hold of it until after. In which case then it'll be at the start of next episode, as in the week after. Yeah, that's about it, really. I am going to win my belt back. Never letting it go, obviously. And, also another thing I want to mention, as it's getting very dark, as I can see. The next big sort of show that we're going to have is the G1 Climax for New Japan. That's sort of the next big thing for New Japan. So instead of covering it match by match, right, because I will probably be watching it, I'm not going to cover it match by match. I'm actually going to cover it by standings. So at the end of each episode that it's on for, I will just say the standings are looking like this. So, it'll just be easier, and instead of having, 30 matches at the end, I can just say, here's how the standings are looking, voila. But the finals will be done like I've been doing. But yeah, it's getting very dark, and you're starting not to be able to see me, and the video is getting very, very shitty. So I'm going to end it here by saying like and share the video. Leave me comments saying, anything, what you want to see on the channel, whatever. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell if you want. I don't care if you do or not. Whale Dong, answer your call out. I'm going to win back my title tomorrow. And never let it go. And I'm better than everyone. So goodbye and good night.